Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, Ghana is heightening its fight against cyber insecurity. Government at the moment is reviewing two legislations aimed at effectively dealing with cyber-related activities. National Cybersecurity Advisor Dr. Albert Entwibosiako is my guest this afternoon for that discussion. We'll be looking at the practical steps that are being taken in this fight against cyber insecurity. He'll also tell us why it has become important to step up the fight, what threats exist, and what Ghanaians can do to ensure their own cyber safety in the cyberspace. Doc, you're welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Gifty.
Thank you very much for your time.
To your viewers. Thank you.
So let's begin with you giving us a general overview of our setup when it comes to cybersecurity as a country. What is the general overview as a Ghanaian? What should I know about our setup that gives me the confidence that I'm okay, I'm good?
Thanks so much. Gifty, I must say, the fight to deal with cyber insecurity started quite a few years ago. And this led to the development of a national cybersecurity policy strategy. That was in 2011. Okay. And the document was considered by Cabinet in 2016. Okay. But within the last 2 years, the government, as you rightly mentioned, has scaled up the fight. And this is due to obvious reasons. You hear a lot about digitalization within our public space. Yeah. You know, paperless port, national identification system, digital property addressing system, e-justice, e-procurement. Almost every public service is being rolled out through the networks. Indeed, some few days ago, the Vice President mentioned that the revenue being generated through one ministry alone, in the Ministry of Tourism, has increased fourfold, you know, through the use of digital platforms to receive funds that are paid by the public. But even also in the private sector, let's look at the banking environment. Most of the banking financial institutions are doing away with physical structures, and they're doing e-banking, e-financial services. Even at the social level, Ghana is ranked the 9th country with active presence on social media. Okay. You know, these are the determinants, you know, the factors that has, call the government to necessitate the necessary mechanism to deal with the issues. Essentially, there are two important developments going on, and you might have listened to the Minister for Communications, who is responsible for cybersecurity in government, meeting the Select Committee on Communications over the weekend, essentially on two primary things. One is a revision of a national cybersecurity policy strategy. Government is enabler for cybersecurity development. So even at the individual level, businesses, we need a certain direction, vision that is broken down into strategy. I'd
like to take you back to that. You've listed the reasons, all the reasons why we really need a strong cybersecurity infrastructure.
You're right.
So I'm back to my question. Based on all, in fact, you've even opened my eyes to all of you know, the existing, if you like, avenues for cyber threat. What then is our response to this?
All right. I did mention earlier, Gifty, government is enabler for cybersecurity development. What I mean is the government needs to set the pace, provide the guidance, and in many cases legislate those directions to ensure businesses, the public, individuals are protected. So the response mechanism from government level is one, reviewing the existing policy strategy to be more responsive to the issues. Okay. You know, technology changes. So that is one area of government focus.
So you did indicate, and I've also indicated in my intro, that there is a review of the Cybersecurity and Interception Bill at the parliamentary level. We also know that there's a revised national cybersecurity policy and strategy. Can you take us through this? What are the highlights of this strategy, of this policy?
I think this strategy essentially identifies the critical areas that we need to look at. It is also identifies financing to be able to deal with the issues. It identifies stakeholders and the various initiatives. Okay, so this policy strategy provides the fundamentals or the foundation for the legislation that you mentioned about to be introduced. Now, focusing on the legislations, the cybersecurity bill, which is being discussed internally, eventually to also come to public consultations. I mean, the usual process by which things run in government. But we're looking at protecting critical national information infrastructure. What I mean is, Gifty, for example, the banking sector, they run on certain databases and platforms. If any of those systems are compromised, it has a huge economic impact that could also lead to national security issues. The paperless ports is another critical information infrastructure. Even the energy sector, you know, the digital platform which are running our economy are critical. So the bill will provide mechanisms, risk management and protection of this, critical databases.
Do we know any of these mechanisms? Is it something that we can understand and identify with, so we can rest assured that our government is taking care of our cybersecurity needs?
You see, cybersecurity is a collection of a number of things. You know, capacity building is key for those who are owners of these systems. The right technology to protect those infrastructures are also key. Certain risk management practices, for example, periodic audits and security assessment to be able to identify the vulnerabilities is also another area you're looking at it. Policy and guidance also on this. So these are the elements that constitute whatever risk management framework that's
I get it.
Right.
What I don't get is what we are doing. What our government, you're advising the government. What I'm not getting is, to what extent can I be rest assured that the things that you've mentioned, we're actually doing it? What are we doing in this country?
I think maybe let me clarify this to give you your expectation. What is being done and what has been done. Okay, I was explaining, I think the question was, what is entailed in this strategy document? And I was giving that to you. If it's a question of what has been done, that of course the public has a right to know is, for example, you know, the computer emergency response, which is more like an ADMO in the electronic environment, has been established within the financial sector and also within the telecommunications sector. What happened is, whatever cyber incident that happens within any of the sectors are picked up, and a remediation mechanism is put in place to address the issue. So these are active systems which are running to protect those sectors. But you know, the cybersecurity ecosystem is a broad ecosystem, but the government has started within these areas. Our international front, Gifty, you know pretty much that cybercrime is a borderless crime. A typical example is most of us uses the digital system which are hosted in the US, Gmail, Yahoo, and those things. You know, the police have been quite active in talking about the challenges that they're going through. For example, if your email address is involved in criminality and the police ought to get to the bottom of the matter, they need to engage with our international partners, like the US government or the UK government. They cannot just travel to the UK. They have to use certain international mechanisms to do so. So Parliament has to ratify the Convention on Cybercrime and also the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity. And these mechanisms have actually established a legal framework by which we can obtain evidence to support investigation. The system is active. So this is another critical area. Then there is awareness creation. You know, the Ministry of Communication commissioned a report that about a year ago. Our major problem is lack of security consciousness. And the Vice President launched a Safer Digital Ghana. And many people have been trained, including the criminal justice sector, authorities, children. You know, UNICEF collaborated on this program. And just last year, more than 7,000 children were also trained. So in terms of what is being done to provide an assurance, I think these are some of the examples that is being done. I wanted to emphasize on the legislation for you to appreciate the gaps. For example, one area is child online protection that the bill will provide. You have reported instances where two people, when they are dating, possibly they share nude pictures in a consensual manner. But when they break up, let's say the man uses that, if you do not come back, I'm going to put this information on social media. This is what they call sextortion. There is a gap in terms of our law to be able to address that. Now, technically...
If you say a gap, is there anything at all in the law that addresses it? There is? Because I'm thinking, I mean, and this is my uninformed perspective, I'm thinking that because you know, our laws were made way before social media. We have not really taken the time to deal with it. Is there anything that protects you from, you know, if you had shared nude pictures, for example, like you're saying, from having it leaked because of a breach in relationship?
All right. Once again, Ghana has certain laws that deals with cybercrime. Essentially, about 90% of cases can be handled criminally. Okay? Maybe it's good to give a broader background. Within the cyberspace, essentially in our sub-region, we need 3 different legislation to address them. One is cybercrime-oriented legislation. 2 is data protection and privacy-oriented legislation. And the 3rd one is cybersecurity-oriented legislation. The first 2, we have them. We have the Data Protection Act, Act 843. That is one of the best legal instruments on the continent. We have provisions on cybercrime in our Electronic Transaction Act, Act 772. So child pornography, for example, is covered. However, you are right to say technology changes quickly, and therefore there are certain gaps that we have to address. So the issue of sextortion, for example, is one of the areas that we are looking at it in terms of addressing. But there are broader issues. Cybersecurity gifting cannot be dealt with consolidated funding. The government intends to establish a cybersecurity fund, and this is one of the areas we should be supporting as a country, because...
And who will be putting money in that fund?
Absolutely, I believe myself and you gifting, we should be doing,
more taxes?
That's
what it sounds like.
I do not anticipate, but you know, I think we got to speak the truth. And let me make comparison with some countries in Asia. I don't want to compare ourselves to Europeans or Americans. They have advanced in terms of even how digital they run their system. But, you know, countries from the Association of Southern Asian countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, which we have certain, you know, peculiar characteristics, we can look at them. A study is estimating that between 2017 to 2025, these countries will spend a minimum of 0.35% of their GDP to fund cybersecurity. Let's translate that into Ghana, local context. In 2017, Ghana's GDP was about a little over 47 billion US dollars. So if we are applying this minimum, you know, which is 0.35% on that figure, that means we need more than 160 million USD a year.
Do we necessarily have to go by that comparison? Because of course, when it comes to comparisons, you need certain elements that push you on an equal state, so that you can do the comparison. Because if we don't have it, we can't give it.
Like I think.
So I just want to say that in our context, what can we do so that we're not looking so high that we can't achieve?
You are very right. Even though, trust me, when it comes to digital attacks, there is no Singapore, there is no Ghana. Indeed, Singapore has a population of just about 6-7 million. That means fewer of their citizens are online, and therefore fewer of their citizens are being targeted by attackers. Ghana, by a population of 30 million plus, means you have a lot more devices being on the internet. And if these countries are spending that much of money, so...
But if you're targeted, it means that you have something. You also want to compare that to the standards of living. So people may be online, but they're basically doing, let's say, Facebook, you know, and just talking, you know, taking pictures and putting. So help me if I'm wrong, because if you do the calculate, the people who are prone to attacks, they're usually people who have something that the attackers want. Am I wrong?
Now the question is, you are right, but what do the attackers want? You know, cybercrime or cyber criminals operate this way. If you know phishing and spam, several emails that are thrown out to you, they don't care, even if they get you by sending 10 Ghana cedis mobile money. Imagine they get 1,000 people, each paying 100, which is irrelevant to you. That's a huge sum of money. Okay. Now I understand you that as a developing country, we need to realistically start somewhere. I'm only giving you a picture so that it can give you an idea as to where we need to be thinking.
Okay, so let's come to the reality.
Correct.
I think we've talked about the ideal situation, etc. But let's come to the reality. On the ground, you are the best man to tell us what's happening on the ground. You're advising government to deal with this, to deal with our cybersecurity.
Right.
From your perspective, are we there?
In terms of what, Gifty?
In terms of what you do.
As a matter of fact, I wish, it's good to have this conversation when you have someone who also has understanding of what is happening within the sub-region.
Okay.
I've been advised not to compare ourselves down, but to look up.
Yeah,
that's why I'm using
that's
those
okay.
But in terms of our effort within the sub-region, West African in particular, Ghana is rated first in terms of our efforts based on what I've listed as to what the government has done and what we're doing.
Efforts.
And I use the word based on, I explain the effort, Gifty.
Okay.
Effort here is based on what we have achieved.
I'm just saying, once you mentioned effort, it just struck me.
The moment I use the
for
effort,
example, we say we measure results, we don't measure effort.
All right, I think effort here, there are certain specific deliverables out of this effort, and there are certain output which I've listed.
Yeah.
The establishment of the SET, ratification of these conventions, awareness creation, capacity building for the judges, so on. So I think these are practical deliverables from this effort.
So we're doing it. We're not there yet.
We can't be there yet. I think that is one thing. When it comes to security and cybersecurity for that matter, I don't think you're going to go there. We need to get a level that we can say Ghana has a resilient digital ecosystem. Okay, that is the best state you can get to. What do I mean by resilient? We will certainly be attacked at a point in time. Advanced country with huge budgets, technology to protect themselves are even under constant attack. So the question is not how we can prevent that. How we will avoid the attacks, but rather how can we bounce back?
Because it's bound to happen.
It's bound to happen. In the world of technology, hacking, for example, is an existential threat. So whatever a government is putting in place should aim at, building us together. If we train you today, Gifty, doesn't mean that attackers won't target you. But ability to detect that this is a potential scam, to prevent it is key, and that is the resiliency that we're trying to achieve, working towards, if I should use that.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up this conversation, but I want you to, and I know that you deal with, the issues at the top level, but of course, at the top level, the bottom line is that it trickles down and then it makes an impact in the lives of the people. For the people who are watching us and listening to this conversation on cybersecurity, what can you tell them about protecting themselves? You've said all that the government is saying, especially to protect government institutions, but what can people do? First of all, what can the government do? What is government doing to protect us as individuals, and what can individuals do to protect themselves in the cyberspace? I
think we've said a lot about the government level, and let me touch, on the individual. Let me bring a bit of self-responsibility in here, if you permit me to be real, okay? You purchase the device. I think the first thing is you need to accept a certain responsibility and get to know what are the do's and don'ts. For example, many people, as I speak, have digital, handheld devices, smartphone. They use the devices for all manner of things, chat, email, sometimes accessing certain sites which they probably might not be. You mean like pornographic sites? Absolutely. Okay. Because we did a conversation here with my colleague here, and we saw the number of Ghanaians who are consuming porn. And the number of Ghanaians who are looking at pornographic sites. So that is a given. I'm happy you've just said it as it is. Now do a survey and find out how many of these users have got antiviruses protecting their computer systems. Okay. Possibly you're not going to have even up to 20%. Okay, now ask me how much does antivirus that protect your smart device cost? That will be less than even 200 Ghana cedis a year. So when I say self-responsibility, we should attribute the same seriousness and the risks, thinking when we are using the digital system as we do in a physical realm. So that means that certainly you need to protect your devices. Okay, so you would advise people to go more for antivirus? That is one. I just wanted to give an example. But also, let's say you think of what to post is very important. You don't just share information that you think if it goes out, it could create problems for you, either short-term, medium, or long-term. That is the key thing. Businesses also need to invest in cybersecurity, and that's what the policy, the strategy is all about. I use the word here, we need to accept the reality government is enabler. So you need to provide the policy, you need to create awareness, you need to put the law in place. but we need individuals also to, take up that responsibility. For example, children, the kind of issues we are having around children, and the fact that they meet people on Facebook and then they follow them, leading to some of this issue with kidnapping and so on and so forth, right? The cyber problem is not only a technology problem. I think this is a fact that Ghanaians need to know. It is also a social problem. What kind of linkages, what kind of trust relations are we building with our families, right? That when they face these challenges, when they meet the unknown person on Facebook, they will come back to you and say, Mom, there's the friend request I've received. What should I do? Okay, so these are the areas I think we need to address beyond, looking at government to make sure that the grand things that you wanted to hear are being done. That is certainly being done within the last 2 years. I think I can assure you that quite a number of things that even led to World Bank bringing the whole of ECOWAS countries to come and study what Ghana is doing. But I think the focus is also making sure that we send a message right to businesses, to individuals, to the public, to be able to also help contribute to safeguarding our digital ecosystem.
Okay. I just want you to, if you were to advise the people who are watching us, dealing with cybersecurity can be a little technical, but you came here with an agenda. Let me put it that way. There's something that you want people to know as far as cybersecurity is concerned. I've asked you a couple of questions, and I don't know if it has helped you to say all that you think we should know. Like I'm saying, this area can be a bit technical, so sometimes I may not have that understanding to perhaps to get you to tell us what you think we should know. What is it that you want people to take out from this conversation that we've had? Well,
I think this is an important thing. It's really communicating primarily what is the offering that the public will be invited to contribute with respect to the revised policy strategy. We're going to reach out to the public to make their input before the document are finalized, because it's a collective document. It's happening in the next, within this month, a stakeholder engagement will be impacted.
So people should look out for this policy and be willing to contribute.
The second one is the Cybersecurity bill. Currently, it's internal consultations. The Minister of Communication leading this with members of the Interministerial Advisory Council on Cybersecurity, comprising National Security Ministry, Defense, Interior, Foreign Affairs, Office of the Attorney General, but also Select Committee of Parliament are engaging to refine this document, and eventually that will also come to the public to make their input to ensure that it addresses broadly what the problems are. But that is just the beginning, and I've mentioned that businesses should prepare themselves in line with the strategy and the policy to invest in that area. It doesn't matter the size of business. If it is SME, there should be a role to play to protect our digital ecosystem. So as individuals, with examples I've given.
Yeah, that sounds very important. But just quick one before you go again. What is the plan? How is it going to look like? Is it going to just go to Parliament and people are expected to, send their thoughts if they want to, or is there going to be like a social media platform or any other platform to get people to contribute? How is it going to be
I think the ministry, by the intention of the minister, is to broaden the discussions as much as possible. In fact, there has been instances that her herself had led some of this, awareness creation. In fact, there are plans to even also convocate media houses to be able to run them through the policy, strategy, and the bills. Because we know you are going to report to that, and it's good that you have a first-hand information. So I think there are certainly stakeholder engagement meetings, and I believe, I'm not too sure whether the social media is also going to come in there, but it is, I think, is a laudable possibility.
Doc, thank you very much for coming this afternoon. I hope that we've been able to, for you, our viewers, do justice to the topic, and now we're giving you that understanding that you need as far as our cybersecurity setup is concerned. Dr. Nchuboisiako is a government cybersecurity advisor. Thank you once again.
I give you thank you for having me.